Equidox by Onyx. Reach everyone.
The webinar's opening slide reads, Equidox Webinar Wednesdays, Batch Processing, Equidox PDF Remediation Automation, March 24th, 2021, 2 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time via Zoom. Need information? Contact us at equidoxsales@onyxnet.com, www.equidox.co, or 800-664-9638.
Okay, so it's just about 2 o'clock, so I think we're ready to get started. For everyone that's still shuffling in, all of this is being recorded, so you won't miss too much in the very first minute or two. But thank you all for attending. Welcome again for those of you who have attended our webinars before, but this is the next installment of Equidox Webinar Wednesdays. I heard a bit of background noise there. I'm not sure if someone was off of mute, but okay, so welcome everyone to Equidox Webinar Wednesdays, talking about our newest service, batch processing. So as always, we do appreciate your attendance. And if you have any questions that we do not answer during this presentation, please feel free to reach out to us. Is there an issue with the audio?
Is that me?
I'm not sure. There's a whole bunch of, I'm hearing people like entering and leaving, but anyways, thank you for, again, for joining us today. And if you have any questions throughout this presentation that we do not cover, please do not hesitate to reach out to us either through our website at equidox.co. You can call us directly at 800-664-9638. Or the best way probably to reach out initially would be through our email, which can be found at equidoxsales@onyxnet.com. We're also very active on LinkedIn and social media. So if you are on LinkedIn, please feel free to connect with us. We post a lot of articles and information about our products, services, and the accessibility space in general. So just a couple of quick notes about us before we get into the nitty-gritty details of batch processing. For those of you who might only know us by Equidox, we have a parent company called Onyx Networking, and Onyx was founded in 1992 in Cleveland, Ohio. So we're approaching nearly 30 years of business in the IT space. We're best known for our partnerships with Google and AWS, Amazon Web Services. So we are really just an all-around cloud consultancy and cloud experts, with our mission being to improve organizational efficiency through cloud computing solutions. So if your organization outside of accessibility has any interest in having conversations about cloud software or cloud technology, please feel free to reach out to us as well. We can definitely direct you to the correct people within Onyx. Now, Equidox is a branch of Onyx focusing on accessibility. So many of you are probably aware of our best-in-class PDF remediation software called Equidox. We also offer PDF remediation services where clients will send us PDF documents that they need to have remediated. Our team of remediators and validators will make those documents accessible, and then we will return those documents to our clients, and then they can be posted online in an accessible format, obviously mitigating all legal risks to comply with accessibility laws and regulations. We also offer expert accessibility services, which can include testing, training, VPAT completion, auditing websites, helping you put together accessibility plans for your organization. And our mission is to ensure that digital information reaches everyone through accessibility solutions.
Logos appear one at a time on a slide titled Sampling of Onyx and Equidox Customers. Organizations include Scott's, Whirlpool, Bose, CBC Radio, Cornell, and others.
So here are just a few customers who we support either through Onyx's cloud business or through Equidox, or possibly a combination of both. So we work with organizations of all sizes in every vertical. So if you have PDF documents and you need to make them compliant, the Equidox team can definitely help you improve your workflow. So like I said, any sort of PDF challenges that you may have, we are probably the people to talk to. So please get in touch with us either way. Even if batch processing is not right up your alley, we do have Equidox software for ad hoc PDFs, and we also offer those services that I just mentioned.
The next slide features a photograph of David Freeland, Equidox lead data scientist. David was team lead for robotic competitions in Brazil and China, published papers on robotics, deep learning, and multi-agent systems, and is designer of machine learning algorithms for Equidox Table Detector, Equidox List Detector, and budget anomaly detection for Onyx's OnSpend.
Now, this week is a little bit different. So if you've joined us before for our Equidox webinar Wednesdays, you're probably used to me talking and demoing something about the Equidox software. But this time I'm actually co-presenting with my friend David Freeland, and he is on the Equidox team, and he is our lead data scientist. So I'm going to turn this over to David to introduce himself and talk a bit more about batch processing.
Thank you, Dan. So I'm going to tell you a bit about myself first. I started my journey at George Mason University, and I got my graduate degree in AI and machine learning. I got recruited then by a robotic soccer team, and we represented the United States in a competition called RoboCup. I got my way to team lead, and we competed in both Brazil and China. I went on to publish some papers in deep learning and multi-agent systems. After my degree, I actually had a connection at the Cleveland Clinic that led me to Equidox. And I thought working for a company doing accessibility and trying to get everybody included sounded like a great way to apply my skills. So I found myself very motivated to contribute to Equidox's goals. So wrapping things around, robotics has a lot of different components to it, but what's the most relevant for us today is computer vision techniques, which try to figure out, let's say, an example for the soccer stuff, where a ball or a robotic player is. All that visual analysis of what's going on a soccer field can actually be applied to analyzing a document in front of you.
The slide reads, Automated PDF remediation, machine learning. Equidox machine learning models automate PDF remediation using a list reads, bullet point, definitions of PDF elements, bullet point, correctly tagged document goals, bullet point, examples in Equidox software, subpoint, smart table detector, subpoint, smart list detector, subpoint, batch processing.
So my initial contribution to machine learning in Equidox was our list and table editor. So when making those documents accessible, in a lot of situations, our remediators have to specify where every single row and every single column in a table is, as well as highlight each item in a list. I can use the bullet points on this page as an example. A remediator would have to go through, tag this whole thing as a list, tag each and every single item one by one, so all 6 items here, and they'd have to make sure they tag each and every single delimiter. So just for this tiny little list, we have a lot of different things we need to make sure tagged. So we really want to automate as much of this as possible so that we save a lot of business time. So the way we trained our machine learning models, we can actually take that manual human process that's been done many, many times by our remediators, and we can teach a machine learning model based on those hundreds of thousands of examples that we can create, and we can then use that to consistently detect these tables and lists and skip a lot of all that manual labor there. So while we use our internal documents to train these machine learning processes, when we apply ourselves to batch processing for a company, we're going to use your documents to train. We don't want a general one size fits all. We're going to take your documents and fit ourselves to identify the elements in there as accurately as possible. If you have a few documents out of thousands or even millions of documents that look a bit different, we want to make sure that we use every machine learning tool at our disposal to find those little outlier documents, which we'll take a closer look at later. We want to give you a sneak peek on how that's done so effectively. But first, let's take another look at our goal state here. Oh, that's the next slide.
A slide titled Fully Automated PDF Remediation contains a list of color-coded PDF elements and an example document where those elements are outlined in the matching color.
Yeah, here's our goal state here. So we want to go ahead and identify each of these single elements. So we have an icon on the top left here for your bank. We have a table with a header and and the table has headers inside it. We got all sorts of things going on. Now this is just an internal representation of of what's going on our end. Just don't worry, we're not going to be modifying your document in any way. So before we um, but before we train our models, we need to do a couple of internal steps first. We're going to have to gather these documents and create all these templates, and I want to show you how we do that. But first,
A Venn diagram shows a circle for artificial intelligence, human-like analysis by machines, particularly computers, surrounding two overlapping circles, one for machine learning, computer models that can analyze data, identify patterns, and make decisions, and one for computer vision, automation of tasks that humans do using their vision. This includes analyzing digital images.
let's get just a few definitions out of the way, and then we can tackle a problem together. So artificial intelligence is just a general broad scope of algorithms that are used to mimic human-like intelligence on any particular task. For more specifically, we can be interested in computer vision. So we're trying to mimic, say, the visual cortex of a human and identify whether something's a cat or a dog or whether something's a table or a list. Machine learning is a different subset of artificial intelligence, which is about teaching a model instead of like hard coding. You can teach a model over time. So where this intersection is where you're teaching a computer to see. So that's kind of our baseline vocabulary here.
The slide reads, fully automated PDF remediation, batch processing. Organize the data. A graphic shows clusters of color-coded dots on a white background, representing groups of documents identified by a neural network.
And now that we have that out of the way, let's go ahead and try to be data scientists together for a second and take a look at an example company. So we can take out a machine learning algorithm and we can teach it how to group similar documents together. So in this example on the right, each dot represents a single page of a document. And the closer those dots are, the more similar that page is. So to show you a better example of what I mean, let's zoom in on a cluster here in the middle. Let's take a look at that.
The slide reads, identify documents with similar elements, and zooms in on a cluster that shows 3 documents with similar objects.
So in this cluster, we have a lot of pie charts that would appear. If you go from the top left, the pie chart appears near the bottom. As you go toward the bottom right of that graph, the pie chart kind of sneaks up toward the top. So just by looking at this cluster, zooming in and clicking on 3 different documents, we already have a really good idea for, gives our machine learning algorithm and our developers to see the variation in these documents just by looking at 3. So we have the opportunity now to take a look at some of those points that are way on the outside, that are really far away from all the other points. We call these sort of the outlier points. And we see an interesting one here where the pie chart only has one category. And this could be something that a machine learning algorithm missed, or honestly a human who is handwriting a template could totally miss out on this situation. If there's thousands or millions of documents, this is just potentially 1 in a million. That could be hard to find. So our machine learning algorithm was able to find that outlier and handle that all right. So there's one other thing I actually want to note on this page. There's a 100% there that's right on top of the pie chart that can actually kind of blend in with that paragraph above it. So again, without noticing these sorts of things and going through this initial machine learning process, there's a good chance we would miss that 100%.
The next slide reads, identify text elements that may vary in size or shape, and shows another cluster with text documents grouped despite differences in text.
And missing something means that someone isn't included. So we need to make sure we get everything. Let's take a look at this real fast. So this cluster we zoomed into has a lot of letters on it. I wanted to show here that while we obviously doing a lot more than a fixed overlay, in this cluster, there are some static elements, like say the logo on the top, and the address that are all in generally the same location, we can actually take advantage of that and make sure that our algorithm focuses on getting these sorts of variations here. As we look at these three individual points, we can see that these paragraphs can vary in length. Some of this header can vary in size. So we need to make sure that we account for that. We sort of have a mix of a static and the dynamic thing going on in this cluster.
The next slide reads, identify text with column variations, and shows 3 clusters of text documents with 2, 3, and 4 columns of text.
Okay. So in these three clusters, these clusters appear to be closer together because they have a sort of similar style, but each um, cluster has a different number of columns. So what I wanted to show you all here is how each document, even though they have a differing number of columns, they have a lot of similar features. So actually, instead of building 3 different templates, one for each cluster, I could actually split up the document by their columns and create one template that can handle columns, and I could sort of combine all these clusters together. And by graphing all these out, gave me a good view of how these differ and how these documents are so similar to each other. So the machine algorithm really helped us learn a bit more about these documents.
The next slide reads, identify tables despite variations in the number of rows and columns, and shows a cluster with 3 documents of diverse tables.
So the last kind of document I wanted to show you today is where the tables vary in their structure. So at the top left here, we have very few cells compared to if we go all the way down on the graph on the lower right, we could see a lot of very dense cells. So we want our machine learning algorithm here is informing us that this is primarily how the document is going to change, that the amount of cells in this table. So we want to make sure that our machine learning algorithm not only identify these PDF elements, but is able to tag them correctly despite these variations. So we have our own table algorithms to make sure that we handle this appropriately.
The next slide focuses on an outlier document from the previous cluster. It is completely missing a table. Text reads, identify documents with missing elements.
And let's take a look at another outlier point, because this could be really important in this example. So in the top left, this could be a bug on this company's end, or it could be something that's an outlier that we need to make sure that we can handle. But there's one on the top left that's completely missing a table. There's no cells at all. So this is another thing that if this cluster had 1 million documents in it, without something like this algorithm, you might never find it looking for it by hand. So this is a case where we could either alert you that this customer might have an issue, or we can just keep that in mind to ourselves if you say it's not a problem, and make sure that we are handling that edge case appropriately.
The slide returns to a list of color-coded PDF elements and an example document where those elements are outlined in the matching color.
So once we've done all of that, we can build ourselves a lovely template. This is the same thing we saw on the last slide, sort of a reminder of what our goal state is. We've now been able to show you how we can identify all these different elements on the page, and this is what internally, again, we're not marking your documents, how internally all these things will be tagged. We'll make sure we apply them correctly so that they're tagged, compliant, accessible, and usable, everything you'd want here. So now you might be wondering, cool, we've made all these templates, we've done all this fancy machine learning stuff. How are we going to get these documents to your company? You have documents, you want them remediated by our batch processing system. How's that going to work for you? So what we want to supply for your developers is an interface where you can call a REST API. And with that REST API on our end is going to interact with either a local server or a cloud server that can be scaled up and down. Whether it's local or cloud is based on your preference. So once we have that PDF, we can go along and forward that to the machine learning algorithm that we have just described in great detail. And after the machine learning has identified the templates and tagged them all correctly, we can send that simply right back to you through the same REST API, and you have yourself a tagged and accessible document for your end users. Next slide. Okay, so that concludes this. Dan, if you can take it away, we have a few FAQs.
Sure. Thank you, David. When we are talking about batch processing with our prospects and existing clients, there's a lot of common questions that come up. So what we've tried to do within this presentation is to just compile a list of these FAQs, and we're going to walk through a few of those common questions that we feel that many of you on this call are probably wondering right now. So David, if you want to jump to the next slide and we can get started.
Yes.
Okay, so David, is this really accessible?
Yes, it is. So it's not just my expertise that's going into this. I'm not a one-man show at our. We have our director of accessibility and his entire team that's going to be going through with our developers and all the machine learning process here to make sure that we're complying with everything. We don't want to leave anybody out.
Right. Our PDF remediation team is full of PDF experts. When we send documents back to clients as part of our PDF remediation services, everything goes through a multi-step validation process. So every document, every template that we're designing for you is going to go through rigorous validation. And this is not just trying to trick the accessibility checkers into saying that this document is accessible. We are actually building a fully tagged, fully accessible, fully usable document for your clients. Now, again, this is not an overlay, so these are not static documents that have to be exactly the same way, and then you just place or copy and paste the exact same template onto every document. These documents might have minor variances, as David has explained. Even if that's the case, our machine learning algorithms are able to detect that, and every document will be tagged in a unique way to make sure that it is fully usable. So David, a lot of people are wondering about these templates. You know, how many templates can you have? What if they need to change? And if they do need to change, how long do these changes take to apply?
Yeah, so the number of templates is very fluid. I wouldn't necessarily be too concerned about our number because templates can vary in difficulty. So that's the thing we can do on case-by-case basis. If they change, it depends on how complex the change is. I imagine a lot of changes can vary in difficulty. So that's, again, unfortunately, one of those things we do tackle on a case-by-case basis. And the length of time is, again, it's one of those unsatisfying answers potentially, but yes, we want to make sure we're working with you, and the length of time it takes us to complete the projects is going to depend on your needs.
Great. All right. That's just one thing to keep in mind is that all of these are custom solutions. So that's going to be sort of a theme throughout the FAQs. We really do need to engage with you and your team on a one-to-one basis and understand your documents, your templates, and all of your needs to come up with a custom solution that will fit for all of your documents. So David, can the system run multiple templates simultaneously?
Yes, that's really not a problem. Running an arbitrary amount of templates is not an issue for us. We just need enough processing power to do it, and we don't think it's going to take that much processing power to do. So it's really not a problem for us.
Great. All right. And so, David, of course, a very important question, is this process fully automated or does it need like any sort of human handholding or babysitting on a day-to-day basis?
It is absolutely automated. It's just a matter of setting those initial conversations and creating those templates. And from there, it should just go smoothly.
Great. Yeah. Once we've had those initial discovery calls and we better understand your templates, your documents, and we can develop those templates, we can take the human involvement completely out of the equation, and it all just works like magic. So Another question that we're often asked is, should this be an on-prem or a cloud-based type of solution? So in talking with our developers, both options are available. So we can set up this system either in the cloud or locally installed on your servers. Our developers have recommended for this type of system that on-prem is going to be faster because you won't have data that has to, ping back and forth from the cloud going both directions. So everything can stay local in your own environment. And also this might help you meet some of your internal security requirements. So a lot of these documents might contain, client data or, information about specific people or account numbers, for example. So a lot of there might be a lot of very strict and rigorous internal IT security measures that you have to adhere to. So keeping it locally installed on your server in your environment might be a better option. But if you are interested in having a conversation about how to install this on the cloud, that's absolutely fine. We can support either option. Now, David, what kind of volume and scalability are supported here?
Yeah, it's arbitrarily large. Like you can have 1 billion documents going through and we can handle it. You just need the hardware to do it. But we don't exactly expect you to have to rent a supercomputer or anything to do that sort of thing. But it's, again, one of those case by case things. So we'll work with you to determine on exactly how big of a machine you might need.
Right. There can be a lot of variance between, the size of the client, whether you're a small credit union or a small utility company or a Fortune 500 company. You could be talking about thousands of documents a month or maybe millions of documents per month, but we can scale accordingly. It really is just dependent on the hardware that you are trying to run this through. But that, again, is a conversation that we can have offline once we're having a one-to-one discussion with you and your team. Now, another question that we're often asked is it secure? And yes, it is secure. So whether you go with the cloud option or the on-prem, it is in fact a very secure system. So many people might opt for the on-prem install just for that extra layer of security, keeping everything installed locally on your own environment to adhere to all of your internal IT security rules and regulations. But just keep in mind that Equidox is a member of the GSA schedule, California's CMAS, the Canadian SLSA, and we've also passed our ISO certification as well. So keep those in mind when you're, when you take everything away from this presentation, that this is in fact a secure solution, and we can have a more detailed discussion about any of your specific requirements when the time comes. Oh, I didn't even notice you changed the slide, David. Thank you. So what does it cost? This is, of course, the million-dollar question. So everyone wants to know, what will this cost? And it really can vary depending on the complexity of the templates, the number of templates that you have, the volume, and the hardware that you are running it on. So there's a number of factors that go into the price. And we know that this has to scale up and down, based on a lot of different factors. So what we want to do is, of course, have a conversation with you to talk about your exact needs, talk about your documents, better understand the situation for your organization, and then we will come up with a custom pricing solution that will work for both parties. So this has to be kind of discussed on a one-to-one basis. There is no just, one size or one price fits all type of solution here. Everything is custom. Keep that in mind. So in summary, that kind of wraps up our FAQ. So in summary, Equidox batch processing is a customized service for our clients to produce fully accessible documents in a fully automated way without any day-to-day human involvement. So this allows for on-demand, accessible PDF creation so that when any of your customers download a PDF, whether it be their bank statement or a utility bill or any sort of templatized document, Equidox batch processing will automatically produce that document in an accessible format. So our batch processing solution is a fully secure, fully scalable solution to meet your needs. Whether you're producing a few thousand or a few million documents, this system will take the burden of page-by-page remediation out of your hands. It will also ultimately ensure that there is inclusion for all of your clients, and it will mitigate your legal risk of complying with all of the accessibility requirements for your organization. So that is going to conclude our presentation today. As always, please feel free to reach out to us either through our website, equidox.co.
Did we lose you, Dan?
More about Equidox in general. You can definitely surf through our website. And of course, we are very active on social.
So Dan appears to be having microphone problems. So we just want to share that we are very active on social media. You can find us on LinkedIn or Facebook or Twitter. You can follow our business pages there and get any updates that you might need or be interested in. And we're really, always trying to keep new material going. And you'll see announcements for our next webinar there. I really want to thank you for showing up today, David. That was a really helpful explanation. Is there anything you'd like to say to the crowd before we close up today?
I think I dropped my internet. My internet glitched. I do apologize if I was in the middle of a sentence, but thank you for picking things up, Tammy.
No problem. We were just giving David a moment to say his last hurrah towards the end here.
Yeah, I'd like to thank you all for listening, and I hope you have good reassurance that we are doing our best to make sure everything is remediated as accurately as possible. And we are not slacking.
Great. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Contact us at equidoxsales@onyxnet.com, 800-664-9638. Equidox by Onyx. Accessible PDF conversion. Reach everyone. The video ends.